February 4th, 2015. Howie's heart surgery. I kept the following log so that I could keep Howie's extensive friend list up to date on his progress. 1/4/2015. And that was a nice note that I just got from Afton saying that Aria tested negative for COVID-19. Yay. Back to 2015. The whole day of preparing for, flying to, and arriving at the Cleveland Clinic for Howie's open heart surgery had me so freaked out I couldn't speak. I just tried to smile and act confident, but kept tearing up. I knew I was in the edge when I read a Facebook post by Dr. Wynn recounting her trying day that included a cat spraying her in the hair right before going out to see the Phantom of the Opera, and I burst out crying. Howie has a bad mitral valve, which means that when his heart pumps, the valve doesn't shut all the way, and some of the blood leaks backwards rather than pushing through his system. He's had a murmur his whole life, but the last 4 years the situation has worsened, and in the last few months he's become short of breath just from walking out to the car. 1/5/2015. Howie, and obviously these dates were happening in succession, I just put them all here at the beginning. Howie spent the entire day being poked again to confirm, prodded and x-rayed and sonogrammed. I think this is the worst part for him. He just hates needles. The day started at 7 a.m. and ran until almost 5 p.m. Glad we are inside, and so glad that Howie sprung for the Intercontinental Hotel, which is connected by a sky bridge and just a couple minutes walk from the Miller Building, or Building J as it's called here, where all of Howie's work will be done. 1/6/2015. We had to get up early to meet with Dr. Gilanoff, but he ended up in surgery, so we went for breakfast and then brought our laptops to the waiting area of J4-1. I'll share what Dr. Gilanoff said in the email I sent to Howie's fan club. 1/7/11:31 a.m. Howie was just taken into surgery. There's expected to be an hour of prep, and then the surgery could run 1 to 4 hours. Dr. Gilanoff says that the longer surgery time can be expected as Howie has a lot of calcium buildup in the valve, and that will take a lot more time than most surgeries. Because of that buildup, he expects to have to do a replacement valve rather than a repair. That means a much larger incision and longer healing time, like 3 to 5 months. Dr. Gilanoff says he does more of this type of surgery than anyone else and expects a survival rate of 999 out of 1,000 for those who do not have calcium buildups, but only 99 out of 100 for those who do. That was a little disconcerting, but 99% is still very good, and Howie didn't hesitate to tell the doctor that he still wished to proceed. Because of the calcium issue, Howie's odds for this being successful and fixing the problem for the next 10 years or so is about 80%. And again, Howie liked those odds better than feeling the declining energy that he's been experiencing. On a range of 1 to 4, the measurement for his heart valve should be a 1, but it was a 3. So he was, in the last few months, of being able to do something to extend his life. He said that he had been under the misconception that 3 was okay, but that 4 was not. So he feels even better about having made the decision to come to the Cleveland Clinic. As you can see, he was in good spirits as they called his name for surgery. Shh, we had to sneak the selfie as they don't allow cameras in there. As soon as he is out of surgery, they will page me, and I will let you know that he's moving to ICU. It will then be another couple of hours before I can see him and give you a better report on his condition. It could be tomorrow before he is fully awake and sitting up. Thank you all for being such great friends to this wonderful man. He is just the best and loves you all. Carole Baskin, CEO of Big Cat Rescue. January 7, 2015. I was paged to the waiting room desk where the nurse told me that the official start time for surgery was 12:40. I thought I would be able to write my way through the horror of knowing that Howie is fighting for his life a few doors down. Instead, I just feel shell-shocked. All I want to do is escape. I have a book on tape to listen to, but I can't stay focused. I've tried to handle the mountains of email, but keep marking them unread to come back to because I can't focus. I can't imagine life without him. I can't sit still, or that is all my mind will do. January 7th, 2015, 3:51 p.m. Still in surgery. I met with the ICU nurse, and she said that even though they took Howie in at 12:40, they didn't actually start to cut him open until 1:20 p.m. As stated earlier, Dr. Gilinov, I just can't say that name without thinking about the Rocky and Bullwinkle show, said that it would be easily 4 hours, as he has to pick out all of that calcium before he will have a good area to suture to. The staff here are absolutely amazing, as are their facilities and procedures. There is someone holding your hand every step of the way and explaining every detail of what is happening and what to expect. The nurse said that as soon as the doctor is done with his part, they will page me and he will come tell me how it went. At that point, you will get a follow-up from me. Then it is about 2 hours before I can see him in ICU, but he could stay asleep 4 to 6 hours after that, and may even sleep through till morning. I can stay with him in ICU, as visiting hours are open. In the ICU, he has a nurse who will be handling only him and maybe one other patient. An ICU doctor will be on that floor all night as well. Usually he can go to a private room the next day. We filmed this yesterday and I thought you might enjoy it.
Yeah, well, it has to be in mixed snow. I'm going to film this. I'm going to film and duck. Maybe I should be by that.
He hasn't seen snow in many years. And it was a video of us throwing snowballs at each other. The video is unlisted, so you can only see it if you have the link. We don't want our detractors to know that we are away from the sanctuary. The major part of the surgery is done. Carole Baskin, CEO. January 7th, 2015, 4:25 p.m. No sooner than I hit send, the pager went off, and it was Dr. Gilinov paging me to talk about Howie's surgery. He said the calcium was all the way up to the leaflets, so there's no way to repair the valve. Howie has gotten a pig valve, and the doctor says that it is working perfectly. He had more good news in that there were no episodes of AFib, which is common during such surgery, and there was no damage done to his heart. He said Howie should be able to get off most of the heart meds he is on and just go on 1 aspirin a day. The news couldn't be better. In about an hour, they will be through stitching him back up, and an hour after that, they will let me into ICU. But they said not to expect him to be awake until much later, maybe not till morning. Thank you for all of your thoughts and prayers. I will update you as soon as Howie has some input to share. 7:26 p.m. Around 6 p.m., Howie was waking up just fine. Everything was going great. But then he bolted awake and had a fit over the breathing tube. He'd worried more about that tube than the surgery in the days leading up, but I'm told that that's common. He began bleeding and lost over 350 cc's of blood, so they sedated him again and have taken him back to surgery to determine the cause of the bleeding. His doctor has been called back in, and they have ordered blood, but because Howie had transfusions after his auto accident in the 80s, he has antibodies to his own blood, so they said it could take a couple of hours. We had discussed this with the heart team yesterday, so I'm surprised that they didn't have the blood on hand. The good news is the 350 cc's is a long way from bleeding to death, and his color looks good. They are calling a code red all heart team members to J6 stat, which was the floor he was on in ICU, but I saw them roll him into an elevator, so I really hope that that alert is not for him. What I did not include in the email, this is in parentheses, what I did not include in the email was the floor number and the all heart team member to J6 stat, nor did I tell everyone that every fire alarm on the floor was flashing and the code was being repeated over and over for about 5 minutes. I also left out the part about how the nurses had to detach Howie from the ventilator for the ride back to the ER and were using a hand pump to keep him breathing. They rolled him into the elevator. I began updating everyone, and then all hell broke loose. I was paralyzed. When I finally got my wits about me, I asked the floor nurse if that was all for Howie. She said it was not, but I feared that she just wasn't at liberty to tell me or didn't know. I have no idea how long this could take, but I will let you know what is happening as soon as I know. 9:39 p.m. Howie's back in the ICU from the second surgery, but they have asked me to wait 10 minutes before going in to see him. I haven't heard from the doctor, and I don't know what was done, but the good news is that whatever it was, they've done it. I'll let you know when I know more. I believe everything happens for a reason, and that whatever caused him to be sent back to the surgeon was probably necessary in the grand scheme of things for his ultimate recovery. 2:20 a.m. This is the next day. This would be January 8th, 2015. Howie is awake and off the ventilator. When he first came back from surgery, he was waking up around 6 p.m. He woke up very suddenly and started bleeding. He lost about 350 cc's of blood, but they weren't sure why, so he went back to surgery. Apparently, at the wire they used to sew his chest back together, he was bleeding at the bone, and it probably worsened as he sprung awake. That had happened right before I walked in, so I didn't know what had happened, only that the nurses were freaking out about the amount of blood. They hauled him out of ICU and into the elevator, and then there was a code red heart team report to J6, which is where we had been. That rang and flashed the alarms for about 5 minutes. At 9:45 p.m., they let me come back in and decided to wake him up very slowly to prevent a repeat of all of that drama. He woke up around 1 a.m., but wasn't breathing well enough until now to have the ventilator turned off and the breathing tube removed. He will be hoarse from the tube a couple of days and can only whisper right now, but his sense of humor is intact. Howie has surprised everyone with his tolerance to pain, saying that it is about a 3 to 4 out of 10 and that he doesn't need any pain medicine. They gave it to him anyway because he is still groggy and they don't want the pain to become unmanageable. He got a blood transfusion of 350 cc's and did not reject it. They said that if he was going to have a problem with it, due to his own antibodies, it would have happened in the first 20 minutes. He's lost another 50 cc's this time around, but that's normal. The first thing he asked me was, repair or replace? I didn't include, this is again in parentheses, I didn't include the following, but I just know he was immediately trying to figure out how long before he could play tennis again, as the replacement has a longer recovery time. 9:52 a.m. Howie is doing great and wanted to call his brother this morning. He can only whisper, so please don't call him just yet. He is still in ICU and may have to stay in here for the day as his blood pressure is still dropping to 80/40 too frequently. His blood pressure is all over the place, so they would like to see that stabilize. The rhythm is excellent, though. Howie says he is probably the happiest person in this whole hospital because he is glad to have the worst behind him. He's already talking about how much better he's going to feel and is doing smile therapy to send endorphins to his brain. Cleveland Clinic offers a lot of alternative healing, such as guided imagery, massage, etc., and of course, Howie is all about the massage. Dr. Gilinov has checked in on him and reports that he's very happy with how Howie is doing. As you can see, Howie is smiling, has great color, if not great fashion sense, and is on his way to recovery. The narrow bandage in the middle is to cover the incision. The 2 narrow strips on either side are just pain patches. When Howie told me he wanted to call his brother, I quickly texted Rick to let him know that Howie was calling, and sounded a whole lot worse than he really was because of the raspiness of his voice. The Muslim across the hall had been praying loudly all night to Allah and then screaming all morning for his wife. After she arrived, it only got worse as he put on a huge show about how much pain he was in, but he had been declining pain meds all morning. I couldn't understand her or their son, but holy cow, what a lot of carrying on. There's about 10 feet from the foot of his bed to the foot of Howie's bed, with not so much as a curtain in between. Howie asked for his headphones to try and block out all of the commotion. I have been quietly watching over Howie, checking his monitors every few minutes, watching him for any signs of distress, moving his lines and tubes so he doesn't pull them out as he shifts around, and mostly just smiling at him in case he opens his eyes. The nurses and doctors told me I am the most calm family member they have ever seen. After hearing the kind of chaos going on around us on this floor, I can see that my level of peace is a huge contrast to the status quo. 10:14 a.m. To keep Howie's blood pressure up, they have been giving him saline, but as he's lost more blood and But as he's lost more blood and diluted what he has, they decided this morning to give him another pint or 350 cc's of blood. This shows that he's lost about 850 cc's of blood so far after surgery. They hope to remove the tube from his chest and send him to a private room today. The bleeding into his chest is pretty much stopped. Today they removed the bandage over his incision and it looks great. There was almost no surface bleeding. Getting the tape off was no fun for Howie though, as his fur is growing back in. 2:30 p.m. Howie had his drainage tubes removed and was detached from the huge banks of monitors so that he could be moved to a private room. He's in J62-20, but the best way to reach him is still by email so that he doesn't jump at the sound of a phone and hurt himself. Howie has a great view from his room. January 9th, 2015, 7:50 p.m. Howie goes for his first walk after surgery. January 10th, 2015, 11 a.m. Howie is starting to look like Don Johnson in Miami Vice with that shadow of a beard, but he's doing well and just went for a much longer walk. The nutritionist came by and explained that they will have to do a blood test before each meal for fear of diabetes, but she thinks it's just the emotional and physical stress of the surgery and not an ongoing issue. Nonetheless, Howie isn't happy about having his finger pricked before every meal. They have removed the pain medication drip line and now just have him taking an amped up version of Motrin orally as needed. He says there's very little pain unless he coughs. He is worried about getting back in shape as fast as possible and about the negative effects of not being able to stretch his back muscles and keep them strong for all of his disc issues. So he's going to do some visualization exercises until he is cleared to get on the floor and work out those muscles. 11:13 a.m. Email to Howie's fan club. Since Howie is doing so well, there is no need to send out emails daily to everyone on his progress. If you go to this link, it will be updated several times a day with his progress, and you will be able to see it there. I was using Evernote back then, so everybody could just log in and see it in real time. You may need to refresh the link in your browser if you don't see an update every 12 hours or less. Again, please do not share this on social sites, as we don't want the rats to know the cat is away. January 10th, 2015, 11:20 a.m. A cardiologist who is part of Dr. Gilinov's team came by and answered Howie's burning questions, which centered on, "Tell me that I will feel better than before, not just that we averted a crisis." And she said, absolutely. She said he may be able to be released from the hospital on Monday with a follow-up visit on Wednesday. That means he could be able to fly home on Thursday, as he originally planned, despite the extra day and night in ICU. When he got done talking to the cardiologist, he was inspired to take another walk. The nursing staff have to assist him for walking today, but say that I can do it tomorrow if he doesn't have any serious fainting or dizzy spells. IFA sent flowers. The bloody streaks on his chest on either side of the incision are from the pain patches. Between the contents of the patches and the adhesive being applied and ripped off over and over, he has begun to bleed, and just asked that they discontinue this pain management, as it's doing more harm than good. Throughout, he has described his pain as no more than a 3, and most of the time only a 1 or 2 out of 10. What has hurt him the most is the IV in his right arm. He blew out the vein on the left hand, so they moved it painfully to the right arm this afternoon, but it has caused him quite a bit of discomfort. January 11th, 2015, 10:07 a.m. Yesterday, Howie took 6 walks, but could only walk 6 to 9 steps before he'd have to stop and regain his breath and balance. Today, he has already had 2 walks and plans to walk every hour, but this time is taking 100 or more steps at a time before pausing. Howie's blood sugar tests, ALC, are pretty normal, so he is happy they will stop pricking his fingers tomorrow. Howie really wants to get better. He's blowing into the PEP device every hour, and even has set his iPhone to wake him up to do it. This helps expand his lungs and prevents pneumonia. Today his vitals are 78 beats per minute and 114/65. The food here has been particularly good, and the dietitian who comes by every day to discuss the menus is just a delightful fellow who apparently loves his job. January 12th, 2015, 11:15 a.m. Howie had a hard night. The nurses came in every hour or so throughout the night, so it's impossible to sleep. One wants to weigh him. An hour later, one wants to draw blood. And an hour later, Dave wants to talk about the menu choices for the next day. And an hour later, one wants to inject him with Lasix. And an hour later, one wants to change the sheets. And an hour later, one wants to check his blood pressure. An hour later, one wants to throw out the trash. An hour later, they want to do a diabetes test by pricking his fingers several times a day. An hour later, a doctor comes by to take out another tube or wire or catheter. An hour later, a meal arrives. An hour later, the dishes are picked up. You get my drift. On top of all of that, Howie has set an alarm to wake himself every hour to breathe into a device to help open up his lungs. He has been diligent about getting up and walking every couple of hours. He's just exhausted. He's having some trouble with his vision as well, where he says he has a missing area of vision in the center of his field of vision, so that's got him a little freaked out. He had hoped to be released today, but due to the setback, they are thinking tomorrow now. Dr. Diane says it's normal to relapse like this, but Howie is finding it discouraging. January 12th, 2015, 9:15 p.m. Howie has suspected that the port they put in his right arm a couple of days ago was not in a vein. When Nurse Sarah installed it, she couldn't draw blood back from it, and his Lasix injections were stinging longer and longer at the port site and weren't having any effect on the water retention from surgery. As much as he hated the idea of being poked again, he asked Nurse Hannah to find someone who could actually hit a vein. Nurse Gabby found a vein and drew back blood to prove it. Now we are hoping the injections will work and Howie can begin recovering faster. He took 6 walks out of about 3 minutes each. He sneezed earlier and thought his chest would just rip apart. That heart-shaped pillow is to press against his chest so that it doesn't hurt so bad to cough or sneeze. He's coughing up a lot of phlegm, but that's better than getting pneumonia. January 13th, 2015, 9:20 a.m. Howie had another echo done on his heart. He won't know until the doctor interprets it how he's doing. He slept pretty well until 5 a.m. when he started having a horrible headache and getting restless, so they gave him Percocet. And I spelled it P-U-R-R-C-A-S-E-T, Percocet. He feels good enough to be arguing with the pompous little doctor who just can't stop talking long enough to listen. Not his surgeon, but a floor doctor. After finally getting the port for injectable Lasix to work last night, and actually seeing a positive result from the first properly delivered dose this morning, the floor doc wants to change him to an oral version. Normally, Howie would be thrilled to take a pill rather than an injection, but he feels the doctor is trying to cover his ass because no one figured out that the port wasn't in a vein for 3 days. Now that the port works, Howie wants the fastest working meds possible because he's sick of feeling like crap, to use his words. January 13th, 2015, 10 a.m. Nurse Belinda brings in a pile of morning meds. She apologizes for it being so late, but says every time she comes by there is someone else in the room doing something to him. 4:45 p.m. Just down the hall, someone's monitor indicated their heart had stopped, and immediately there were nurses and doctors running down the hall to help. The alarm was code blue and has been running non-stop with ear-piercing sirens for more than 5 minutes. But Howie has slept through it thanks to his Bose headset. It just made me sick to think that someone went through surgery, spent a day or two in ICU, and still managed to die. It just makes the whole fragility of this situation palpable. I'm really glad that Howie wasn't aware of what was happening. Earlier today, Howie spoke with Dr. Gilinov, who decided to keep Howie in the hospital another day. He will spend tonight here and hopefully be released to the hotel next door tomorrow, and then cleared to fly home on Thursday the 15th. 10 minutes have passed and the sirens have stopped. Back home, one of our sweet volunteers had reported early this morning that her husband wouldn't wake up and she called 911. He died later in the day from a brain aneurysm. Life is so brief, so precious, and the best thing we can do is live every day as if we were dying. January 14th, 2015, 9:17 a.m. Dr. Diane told Howie he can be released today around noon. Even though there are a lot of places to sit down on the 6-minute walk from the hospital room to the hotel room, Howie fears that it takes him so long to recover after a walk that it will be too much for him, so Cleveland Clinic will loan me a wheelchair. The concierge will arrange for a wheelchair at the airport. I think a day and a half of rest at the hotel before leaving tomorrow evening for Tampa will help a lot. They still wake him up for stupid things throughout the night and still barge into the room with a lot more than what seems necessary through the day. In the hotel, it will be quiet, and he can rest except for doing his breathing, stretching, and walking exercises. 6:28 p.m. Howie was discharged after a lengthy and tedious reading of the aftercare rules, as if we can't read, that took 32 minutes. The hospital wheeled him out to our room in the Intercontinental next door, and we got him in his jammies for the night. Despite that, he plans to walk the halls every couple of hours. We brought the NutriBullet with us, so I made him dinner of spinach, carrots, apples, prune juice, banana, and protein powder. Now he's sitting at the desk trying to figure out what he's supposed to take. When he's supposed to take this shopping bag full of drugs they put him on. January 15th, 2015, 11:36 a.m. Howie is sleeping after a grueling morning of final x-rays, EKGs, and blood tests that started at 7 a.m., which meant that he had to wake up at 5:45 a.m. after another hard night. He just can't get comfortable and is constantly trying to find a position that doesn't hurt his heart or his back, and just can't. We fly home this evening at 5 p.m., and Howie and I will both be very happy to be home. Final EKG looks good. Will it ever end? Final doctor's consultation to go over the drug list for the third time. The good news is that he can stop taking the Lasix and potassium and can stop taking the 2 medications he was on before the arrhythmia. Officially an outpatient. The Cleveland Clinic provides a car that will pick us up at the hotel and take us to the airport, where we will get another wheelchair from the SkyCap. Thankfully, Howie can sleep sitting up as well as he can laying down, so I'm really hoping today's trip won't be terribly awful for him. The tiny seats on Frontier will probably be the worst of it. January 15th, 2015, 9:50 p.m. Howie is welcomed home by Babylon, who kept a close eye on him throughout the night. Howie will continue the healing process of doing breathing exercises and going for longer and longer walks several times a day. He is even more committed to eating healthy and taking care of himself. January 16th, 2015, 9:40 a.m. Babylon is still on the job. First time I've relived that, I think, since it happened.